GT Blankies proudly presents Musings with Steve and Teresa. They're here to enlighten, entertain, and inform about issues they think are important. They want people to think about how positive actions make positive people. Their show is captured and linked to YouTube. The programs are listed in the archives of both Blog Talk Radio and YouTube video, and you can watch it as well as listen. Now on with the show.
Hello everyone. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Our show is captured and linked to YouTube. The programs are listed at the archives of both Blog Talk Radio and YouTube as Musings with Steve and Teresa. Links can be found on our Facebook page, and you can watch as well as listen. Strangely enough, we refer to our efforts as Musings with Steve and Teresa. I'm Steve, a co-host.
I'm Teresa, the other co-host.
And our guest today is Patrick Dingle, Business and Development Specialist of the Ohio State University South Center's Business Development Network of the Ohio State University.
And that's all on that little tiny card.
On that little card. We're here to enlighten, entertain, inform about issues we think are important, and we want people to think about how positive actions make positive people. And welcome, Patrick. We appreciate you coming with us today. And Terry, what about our blankies today?
Well, Groundhog said spring is on the way, so I brought the spring flowers. We've got this one. I think would be good for Valentine's gifts for little people. I mean, they like to get in on the love too. It's got hearts and flowers, and it's the same on each side. That one I think I called Country Flowers. I believe it's the same on both sides. Yeah. And this one I can't remember its name, but it's got like a pale blue on the back. So I brought flowers today, and they're all available. You can order them off of Facebook or go to our website, which the address. Even the email address is at the end caps of the beginning and the end of the show. And there's plenty of blankets available. Spring line is in production. Well, thinking about production anyway. And getting things lined up. So yeah, come and get your blankies. They make great gifts.
How long does it really take to make a blanket, a baby blanket, doing one at a time?
One at a time.
Just one at a time.
Never done just one at a time.
I understand.
Let's see. I'd say from cut to finish sewing, a couple 3 hours.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I know that you have your hands involved in all of the different baby blankets.
Yep.
And your granddaughter probably has her hand.
Yeah, she helps with fabrics and placement and taking new blankies when she forgets hers.
And so she must have a lot of baby blankies.
She's got at least a dozen in different sizes, and we're gonna put them all together and make her take a picture with all of them, because I can't even begin to count, because I've even made her, like for Christmas I made her a big fleece one with a matching pillow, and that's in the pile. I mean, she's got at least a dozen in different sizes.
Well, I've got to share this with you. My grandson, the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. We were going somewhere. It was during part of the holidays, and the mother said, she was packing up everyone. Mothers are in charge.
Got to pack it up. Yeah.
And fathers are in charge of packing up the car. And the last thing she said was, "Do you have your little baby blanket?" And I thought, wow.
You got your blankie, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because you'll if a child doesn't have their blankie, you will turn the car around and go back and get that thing, because Shane, before she started getting them, she'd forget them and there'd be no sleep. She would just be whining and rolling around. So I suggest too that you buy 2 blankies at a time, and keep one foot back, which is what some of hers were supposed to be. But she said, "No, they're all mine." Huh. And I suggest a backup. Yeah.
So you have to wait until they fall asleep so you can get your blankets back.
Or let them go, off to somewhere else to go wash their blankets. And that can be traumatic. Where's my blankie?
Steve, when we were growing up, didn't we have teddy bears?
Oh yeah. I had a teddy bear that took quite a beating.
I still have my teddy bear from when I was 5 years old, and you can't really touch it because it's all crispy. And I put it in the bag, and she sits over in the corner. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it was teddy bears were still new when I was little.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because Teddy Roosevelt, wasn't it, created the teddy bears? Or?
He did it about 10, 15 years before I was born.
That's
It
still
wasn't
quite
that
popular.
long. I don't, in the 20s, wasn't it, when he
I think the 20s,
killed his bear or something?
20s or 30s.
I
I think it's around there. I know a little of ancient history.
I don't have the timeline inscribed in my head.
They were still new even when I was little.
If I wasn't here, it's history, you know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that leads right into what our subject today. One of the things I want to touch on first, I got this locally. The North Carolina schools write off cursive instruction.
And I said, what?
Cursive handwriting was once a standard part of the 3 R's in elementary school and is no longer required to be taught in North Carolina. The death of cursive instruction is linked to National Common Core standards that North Carolina and 44 other states have adopted to standardize educational goals nationwide. The state leaves the decision on whether to teach cursive up to local school systems. And further on in the article, it gives the arguments that justify this, meaning one of the things is the teachers have only a limited amount of time to instruct the kids, and
my answer to that is make the day longer.
Well, I'm observed anyway, like as I told it, Terry. Thomas Jefferson was a man for the ages, you might say, and he was gifted in Greek and philosophy and Latin and architecture and art and a
well-rounded education.
Well, he was able to do these things in his in a Monticello that. For instance, the folding doors. He's got a mechanism in there so that when you open one door, the folding doors open up. He either invented or copied these from his education, and I believe he spoke Latin, and he was familiar with Greek.
And he had a nice handwriting.
And they didn't have. They had the printing press yet, but not very much of it, and everything he did was handwritten. And he had time to learn it. So what are we doing with our kids?
Well, we had time to learn it. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think that they should do that, because I think that your signature is part of your identity. Like, it took me years to decide on my signature. I mean, should it be this way? Should it be that way? And they're going to do away with that completely? I mean, that just doesn't seem right.
They're just not going to teach it.
Well, I think then, like I was reading there too in his article, that the grandparents are saying, well, come here, I'm going to teach you, kid. So all our grandparents are going to have to teach the kids cursive, which should be interesting.
I must. They probably have looked at my handwriting and said, no.
Don't teach that, huh?
No, I tend to.
It's a mixture like
find
mine.
That rather amusing, because in essence, we do communicate many different ways, but we also communicate in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder if this didn't evolve from our insistence that the government teach all of the kids the same way, and in so doing, they have to set the bar low enough that the unteachable can jump over it, and as a result, the more apt people are left to their own devices. I mentioned earlier
that's possible. I myself think that there's some individuals that just don't have the coordinated skills to be able to write.
Well, it said that's one thing that writing by hand teaches you is that coordination and the skills.
I understand.
Yeah.
But there still are people that are unable to master these minimum requirements, and the point that I'm making is the way we're doing our socialistic democracy is that we're dumbing everybody down to include the deficient ones, and I think I don't know how you would profile this, but how you set the standard higher for those people that are capable of jumping higher.
I don't know. I think it makes a very convincing argument for homeschooling, which is becoming more and more popular every year.
Sure. I think there's a variety of different reasons why North Carolina would write off cursive instructions. Oftentimes, what seems like a good idea turns out to be a dumb
a dumb point in the fork in the road. Yes.
So it would be interesting. That's an interesting article that you found, Steve.
And it's going to have reverberating results down through time here. I'm pretty sure. Well, another thing that I got into, now we're approaching our do light questions. What do to oppose the negative aspect of the world that we live in, what things are being done right? And actually we came up with the concept here a couple of weeks ago that much of what's being done is done positive or right. There's only a small percentage of people that are completely outside, outlaws, if you will. And society provides peace and health and safety and fire protection and inoculations and all of the parameters that go from there.
Civilization.
Young people, by and large, are getting their lessons and doing what they're supposed to, and they're not out writing graffiti all over everything and stealing things. Now there's a drug culture right now that they don't seem to be able to
get a handle on because they're approaching it from the wrong direction, my opinion.
Well, but as long as we don't require religious teaching and they pretty much let the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts diminish in effect, there's nobody out there telling them it's wrong. And there's a lot of people and events saying that here, do this. You haven't got anything else to do. Blow your mind. You know.
The idle hands.
Don't you also feel that throughout our history we have had those in society that didn't fit in?
Yeah.
And that statistics.
They're the same, and they haven't changed.
Yeah, they haven't changed. You have a certain number of individuals that just can't hold a job.
As Minnie Pearl says, my Uncle Joe isn't a failure. He started at the bottom, and he liked it.
And there's a certain number of individuals that become addicted to drugs.
Whatever's available.
Sure. And then you have those individuals that find it easier to rob and steal than you do. Work hard for it. You have all of those individuals, and really it comes down to statistics. If we only had 1 million people, there might be 10 people that will be thieves. But if we have 1 billion people, then you have a much higher. And instant access to news. Sometimes don't you find that sometimes we only report the bad?
Well,
Well,
it does draw more attention than anything else.
One of the things, if it bleeds, it leads
Yeah.
in the news
Sure.
parameters. And the thing is, if you notice, now we have instant news coverage and we have news all over the place, CNN
yeah.
and so forth. They scrounge this world for something to talk about. And they've only got about an hour of stuff, and then the rest of it is just rehash and repeat and so forth.
So when something bad happens, they jump on it.
Well, it's a good indication, really, of how successful the world is when when they start reporting about a street fight in Saigon or something like that as being the world news for today.
It's interesting. I was reading an article that we are moving towards live streaming kind of a society.
Well, that'd be scary.
To where, and if you look at the various different news, was it someone here telling me that CNN shut down their investigation?
No, but it wouldn't surprise me. They
have posted.
Somebody did. Huh?
They had the exploratory reporters, and they cut costs and
they weren't making money.
Well, it wasn't they weren't getting enough results out of the money that they were spending, so they chose not to. Now, I don't know how many things are done this way. For instance, I just went to King's Daughters Hospital in Ashland, and a year ago they had valet parking in order to facilitate the visitors coming to the hospital. And they had a budget renewal and so forth, and now they got a parking lot with a sign that tells you where to find it. Budget constraints is what I interpret that to be. And while valet parking was a good idea and it gave job, I imagine when they did disrobe. Well, if you can figure, they had about 18 hours of valet parking, and there would be 5 to 10 people working per shift. There was 30 people lost their position as by outlawing the valet parking.
Cutting the valet, yeah.
And there are other things similar to that. Well, what you just mentioned earlier, that there is no unemployment office in Scioto County.
There isn't.
You have to do it on the computer.
Or go to Columbus almost.
Well, the thing is now that this empirically then disbars anybody that doesn't have access to a computer.
But you can do it by phone too.
Well, you can go to the library and do it, but that means that the unfortunate that's out of work still has to have access to a computer or access to a telephone.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this bar for the disadvantaged. It's still being raised. That there's a group of people there that, like your friend Ricky, who he's unemployable.
Yeah.
He's almost unable to be brought into a mixed company. He's barely socially diaper trained, if you will. And
I don't think he's that bad.
well, all right. But now that he's off of the drugs, he's
He's a nice guy.
yeah, he's a nice guy, but he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
And those people are that percentage of people that don't function in society.
Our history has continually shown that there is going to be a certain segment of our society that needs a great deal, great deal of help. And I'm not trying to say everyone is good or anything of that nature. All I'm saying is that every society we have had, there are a certain percentage of individuals that get most of the attention, and we as human beings tend to focus our attention on the negative kinds of elements, when in reality, as you were pointing out, Steve, 80-90% of the people are nice, are good.
And actively engaged in
That's
whatever.
right. Yeah.
If it's that old rotten apple in the barrel
That's right.
thing, you know.
For instance, now it's not. If you go back through time, there, do you find these people? I had an aunt, a great aunt. My grandfather Clark took care of his mother and his sister, who was not. They couldn't let her out of the house by herself. Right. I mean, now she functioned. She had her jobs and she had respect within the family, but she was isolated. And
needed a little looking after.
As you look around, you find that there's a whole lot of people that had an injured brother, an injured an uncle that lived in the attic, so to speak. And as society came along, they in some cases they put them in institutions and threw the key away. And as we brought the thing into the news, there's more humane treatment advocated, but these people are still dysfunctional.
According to the majority
the
individuals in the society. Right. Because each society has to set up their own laws and their own rules. And oftentimes the rules and laws that we set up in society, sometimes it becomes sort of a spiritual, religious kind of thing. And many of the laws are to protect individuals or to make it as fair as possible. Can you imagine if we had in our if there were no laws, there wasn't any laws to drive, there wasn't any laws to
it would be chaos.
It would be chaos.
Well, they invented driving here in automobile driving here in the United States, and for a long time, the other nations couldn't understand stop signs and
right.
traffic lights. And what?
That's right.
Why are you doing that? In England,
killing ourselves.
Well, to start with, the original cars cost what we would say hundreds of thousands of dollars in our economy. Only the rich people had them. And in one case, I remember them saying that they had to have, back when they had a steam engine, an automobile, that there had to be a footman with a lantern walking in front of the car to.
They didn't put headlights on it yet.
Well, this was back at the beginning. But
trying to keep a guy's job.
When Henry Ford hit this thing and started shooting these things out like popcorn, it changed the viewpoint of the world. It changed the regulations and the history, the traffic conditions, and they responded with stuff that actually works pretty doggone good.
Yeah, we do have some of the safest highways ever now. I mean,
well,
you could go to sleep and not be a problem. Like, they're so nice and smooth.
I was playing with population there. Patrick mentioned it earlier. In 1790, we had about 4 million people. That was when they wrote. That was when they wrote the. And probably doesn't count the Indians too, because when they did the census,
they didn't count the Indians.
They didn't go out there. But 100 years later, then in 1890, we jumped to 63 million.
Long cold winters.
I was born in 1932. It was 123 million. Currently, they're talking about 315 million. So it's 1.5 times more people from when I was born
in the United States.
In the United States,
sure.
And the world, add and subtract for wars and disease, the world's been keeping up with us.
Yeah. Sure.
And all of those things mean that they're we got 3.5 times the amount of people when I was born. That means that if population stayed the same, then for every one criminal in 1930, we now got 2.5.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Statistically, sure.
And I don't know whether it goes up or down from there. We don't have data.
Many times, the live streaming, the internet, because of the instant access, we focus in more on those individuals that have major quirks than we do the nicer people. And to give you a case in point, we have 2 talk shows where they bring on individuals that have been married 14 times, they've had sex changes 15 times. And we all know who the shows that tabloid shows that we're talking about, and it's unfortunate, but people do watch them. People do watch.
Not one of them.
Me neither. Not since I got a divorce. I don't got to watch that stuff no more.
And we many times draw the conclusion that most of the people are like that, and they aren't.
Well,
no,
this
not,
is the implication of
I always knew those
TV.
people were just a small section.
The amount of crime shows that we had and the amount of cowboy shows,
Sure.
the rest of the world thinks that we are still in the Wild West,
Sure.
Wild Earth area.
But there's a reason. I read when I was going to school a while back, there was a reason why that there's so many of those types of shows. It has to do, I'll have to find it because it was a really good, simple, lame explanation.
Well, the thing is that
I think it had to do with like general acceptability, and it was like, what?
Well, this is true.
I'll have to find that article.
Now, for instance, if you can't find it very easily, but in the history of Southern Ohio, there's an account of where these guys were hunting here in the valley, and there was about 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And they all took a shot at this deer, and they got it. And out of the bushes came about 6 Indians, who waited until the guys had shot their gun, and it takes about a minute to reload.
Yeah.
And which is why many of the very popular survivors of the frontier reloaded instantly after they shot their gun before they even went to see if they if they got what they shot. Yeah. And because if you didn't have your weapon loaded, you were in trouble. Yeah. Well, anyway, this guy was starting to reload his gun when the Indian showed up, and they were outnumbered and categorically defenseless. The guy had to put the powder in. He had a ramrod down in his muzzle loader. And the Indians talked back and forth, and the indication was that this was. I liken this to 2 motorcycle gangs meeting at the corner bar, and you know that the trouble is
so
pending.
who ended up at the deer?
Yeah. Well, anyway, the Indians went back into the group, and this one guy who was doing his rifle fired the ramrod and killed 2 of the Indians with the ramrod. Yeah. And then everybody ran. Now they don't show that in the history book too much but that's pretty much the way it was. Is if you weren't on top of it, you were part of the debate. And it's not a very nice story, but it doesn't get published very much because we're trying to say that we were better people than that.
You do bring up the point that every period of time we have had those situations that have not been nice.
Well, yeah,
we've always lived in a period of time where there has been some tragedies.
60 seconds.
As long as there's humans on the planet with free will, that's going to continue.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we haven't covered very much of our problem. I've got several information things about demographics, but we're running out of time here. And thank you, Patrick, for being
Well,
with us
thank you for
today.
asking me.
Yeah.
We enjoy your viewpoint and how you stimulate our thinking. We want to thank everyone for listening to our podcast. We'll return with our continuing viewpoints next Tuesday at 2 p.m., where we'll probably, unless something else happens, get back into the do-right list and the edges of the consciousness there. I'm Steve.
I'm Teresa.
And Patrick
I'm Pat.
Dingle.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. Think positive.
Be
positive.
Live positive.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
And goodbye.
See ya.
Gigi Blankies, thank you for listening to the podcast today. This program is archived at Blog Talk Radio, captured and archived for YouTube video, and linked to Facebook as Musings with Steve and Teresa. Think positive, be positive, live positive, and enjoy.